Imagine receiving a call from the police and being told that your young daughter is dead. That's right, 20 stab wounds, 10 of them in the back and neck, and it was ruled a suicide. Case closed. The good news is Nancy Grace is immersed in this case.
You mean to tell me she sliced her own spine and kept stabbing herself?
It's the most disgusting thing I've ever heard.
I know she was murdered.
Imagine receiving a call from the police and being told the person you love the most, your young daughter with her whole life ahead of her, is dead. You also find out it was a horrific and painful death. 20 stab wounds, including a kitchen knife lodged deep into her chest, but also with wounds to the back of her head and neck. Believe it or not, that horrific news was just the beginning of a 14-year nightmare for the parents of 27-year-old Ellen Greenberg. The medical examiner initially ruled the beautiful Philadelphia teacher's death a homicide. But then, after a clandestine meeting between police and the medical examiner, it was mysteriously changed to suicide. That's right, 20 stab wounds, 10 of them in the back and neck, and it was ruled a suicide. Case closed. Tonight, after more than a decade of fighting for answers, the medical examiner's office has agreed to reopen Ellen's case. Now, Ellen's parents will join us tonight in an exclusive primetime interview. Nancy Grace will also weigh in. She is one of Ellen's fiercest advocates and covering the case on her Merit TV show, Crime Stories with Nancy Grace. And believe you me, she is fired up.
Can I boil it down for you and get a simple yes, no? Ellen was stabbed 20 times in the back of the neck, the back of the head, covered in bruises.
Yes.
That's not suicide. Yes, no.
No, it's not suicide. I'll plainly say that.
They've been through a 14-year nightmare, and the good news is Nancy Grace is immersed in this case now. In fact, you've written a book about this case, What Happened to Ellen, which people can be able to get and read on April 22nd. Give us the facts of this case so you can get everybody up to speed.
Dr. Phil, first of all, thank you for inviting me on this very important issue, because if this can happen to Ellen, it can happen to any of us. I mean, I'm not obviously a medical doctor, I'm a trial lawyer. But how can a woman, a young, beautiful woman, bride-to-be, who has just sent out her save the dates for her wedding, how can she be stabbed 20 times? And I want to correct that. We know of 20 times. Dr. Phil, you and I have discussed many times when there are multiple stab wounds, that very often stab wounds overlap each other. In my mind, there are more than 20 stab wounds, but I'll go with 20. How can this young woman stab herself in the back of the neck, the back of the head? There's a huge gash up here, Dr. Phil, up here. Now, how did she do a horizontal gash across her head? And another thing I've learned from very carefully reviewing the autopsy and discussing it with multiple experts, she had to do a hand change. What do I mean by that? You know, a lot of people, they'll have their knife in one hand and their fork in the other, and then when they cut their steak, they transfer it, they cut with the knife, and then they use the fork to pick it up. To do what she did, to do what was done to her, correction, she would have to transfer the knife, okay, in the middle of the suicide. When I learned this, and when I learned what happened at that murder scene, how it was cleaned up professionally, and so much more, I knew I had to speak out.
Well, listen, you are speaking out, and you're right. This doesn't make common sense. And you know, people, they can use their own body to think about this. I've actually got a figure here that we can look at so people get the idea of what we're talking about. And I also want to point out that there was a knife left in the chest. And we'll talk about the significance of that in a minute, but so people can look at this, there are also multiple stab wounds where every one of these X's are in the front, and then we turn around so we can see all of these X's are where the autopsy report says these stab wounds were. And I'm not the most flexible person in the world, but I can't even reach some of these areas, Nancy. Being stabbed is very painful. And to do this 20 times, as you and I have talked about, there's probably more than 20 stab wounds here. And then to leave this knife is left, and of course this would be, the theory would then be that this was the kill shot at the end. Why would someone do this? And I can tell you from a psychological standpoint, it doesn't meet the psychological profile of this individual. This wasn't someone that was prone to self-hatred and rage that would just attack themselves in this way. This wasn't this person's psychological profile.
No, Dr. Phil. Again, this is not my bailiwick, it's yours. But just being a trial lawyer that's tried a lot of homicide cases, think about Ellen's actions, which is a whole other psychological aspect of this. But I want to come back to the wounds because I've got some news that's going to just knock you out as it did me the first time I heard it. But that day, she had a beloved first grade class. She loved teaching, Dr. Phil. And a blizzard set in that day, okay? So everybody got to go home early, snow day. She, on her way home from school, stops to fill her tank up with gas, which is contrary to any suicide I've ever seen, where your only thought is to end your life. You're not worried, hey, do I need to fill up my tank so I can get out in the snow tomorrow? Fills up her tank, comes home, calls every one of her little students' family to make sure the students got home okay. Then she starts preparing, I guess, lunch or dinner, a huge fruit salad. She has just sent out the save the dates for her wedding, big wedding, okay, that her mom and dad were going to pay for. Huge, fancy wedding. Then she's in the kitchen making the salad, Dr. Phil. And all of a sudden she says, to hell with the salad. I'm going to kill myself. Yes, I'm prepping dinner, but forget that. Then stabs herself 20 times. And this is an interesting forensic fact. And I need to figure out what to make of this. That knife that you said was plunged into her chest and her hand was still around it. The other hand, Dr. Phil, was clutching a completely clean, white, pristine dish towel. So what? She did all that with the dish towel in her hand, completely clean. Now, this is the forensic fact I wanted to tell you, Dr. Phil. I didn't come up with this. Experts that worked on the autopsy and looked at the case for the state, for Philly, said that one of the wounds did not bleed. Translation, her heart was not beating. When that wound was sustained, she was already dead. Let that soak in. One other wound actually went so deep, Dr. Phil, it sliced her dura. D as in Delaware, U-R-A. What is that? That is the protective sheath around your spine, Dr. Phil. You mean to tell me she sliced her own spine and kept stabbing herself? That did not happen, Phil.
None of this makes any sense at all. And from a psychological standpoint, people that are taking their own life don't have forward thinking. They don't take forward actions. You don't fill up your car, which will last you a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, if you're going to be dead in an hour. You just don't do that. They don't do forward thinking like that. They don't take actions into the future when there is no future. That just doesn't make any sense. You're sussing this out exactly right. And if you do what you're saying there, where she slices through the sheath around her spine, You're going into paralysis. You're starting, all sorts of things start to happen. It doesn't make sense. But we're going to continue to talk about this. Coming up next, Ellen's parents join us. We'll get their reaction to the medical examiner walking back the suicide ruling after 14 years. Now, there was this clandestine meeting where this changed from homicide to suicide. What was that all about? Now, 14 years later, they're reopening this. Plus, what they really think happened to their daughter. We're going to talk about all of that. Nancy's staying with us the entire time, right when we come back. Did you know that high blood pressure is the #1 risk factor for mortality? 1 in 2 adults has it. That's a 50-50 chance you are a walking time bomb. But here's the good news. You can take control of your blood pressure naturally without relying on Big Pharma. 120 Life combines delicious super fruit juices proven to help lower blood pressure. Backed by hundreds of doctors and trusted by thousands with real results, it's a solution you can rely on. The best part? It's risk-free. Try it for 2 weeks. If your numbers don't improve, you get your money back. Lower blood pressure or your money back. Nothing to lose, everything to gain. Go to 120life.com. That's 120life.com and use code PHIL, P-H-I-L, to save 15% and get free shipping. This is serious. This is your life we're talking about. 120 Life can help. Joining us now are Ellen's parents, Joshua and Sandy Greenberg. Now, they've been crusading for justice for their daughter, all while mourning the loss of their only child. So I'm so glad to meet both of you, and I'm so very sorry that you've had this loss and had to go through this terrible battle, because it gets in the way of actually grieving. So thank you both for being here and talking about this.
Thank you.
Let me ask you first, how did you hear about your daughter's death?
We were tucked in our family room. I had cleaned up from dinner and listening for sounds of a hopeful snowplow to come through, and the landline rang, and it was the fiance's father telling us that something terrible had happened to Ellie. And I didn't know what that meant. I said, so where's the ambulance? He says, there is no ambulance. And then I screamed, Josh, pick up the phone line. And I said, well, what happened? He didn't know. But he was in the lobby of the apartment building. So somehow they were able to get in a nor'easter to the building. And he was just first calling to tell us.
What was y'all's initial theory of what happened to her?
We didn't know anything.
You just knew nothing.
Nothing.
And then ultimately you found out that she had been stabbed so many times. And so obviously you concluded that she had been attacked, right?
We didn't know details. The whole situation was very murky.
The police didn't call us. We knew nothing. I know it sounds absurd, but we didn't know our daughter was dead. We had no idea what was going on. We were in Harrisburg on the night of a very bad nor'easter where the turnpike was closed and everything. There's no traveling around. We don't know how these people got to where they got to the building where Ellen and Sam were living. And they called us and said something bad has happened to Ellie. That's about it. I don't know how part of it, I'm going to be honest with you, part of it is we were so shocked that we didn't know what was happening.
Once you found out that she had been stabbed almost 24 times.
I didn't find that, Dr. Phil, I didn't find that out until I read the autopsy report.
Right. We didn't know anything.
And I counted from A to the letter T. That's how many knife wounds were affecting her.
I mean,
I would sit there with a centimeter ruler late at night trying to figure out
what 2 centimeters?
What it all was. And that wound on her head was a very large wound.
And it was first ruled a homicide, and then it changed. What happened?
The city, the district attorney's assistants and the medical examiners had a meeting,
And the police
and the police, and there was no record of this meeting. We are not sure who, to this day, who was at that meeting. I will tell you that one of the people at the meeting received high immunity from a judge in the city, meaning that the judge just threw her off the case. We don't know what happened. Eventually, Osborne, who was the medical examiner who did the hands-on autopsy of our daughter, changed it to suicide. He didn't discuss
because of things that the police
He said.
told him that weren't true.
inaccurate.
And what was he told? Have you found out what this person was told? That
He was told, number one, that someone was with Sam when he broke in to the apartment, which is number one, not true.
Number one, Sam didn't break into the apartment. But go on. Nothing he was told was true. And the main one though, was that Sam was accompanied into the apartment. He was not alone when Ellen's body was found. That's really the main thing. The other things are less, that come out later on during pre-trial examinations. I forget what's that called?
Depositions.
Depositions. Like Lindsay Emery, who was brought into the case, is the one that said that some of Ellen's wounds were post-mortem, meaning they were administered after she was dead. And we still haven't figured out how a suicide person who died from suicide could administer wounds after she's already dead.
and Sam is the fiance, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And to be clear and be fair, Sam is not a person of interest at this point. He's not been charged. He's not a suspect. At this point, the police are not investigating Sam. He's not a person of interest or a suspect, correct?
I'll make it very easy. The case is closed and Ellen was a victim of suicide. That's the end of the case.
Okay, but it's now been reopened.
Well, not quite. Not quite. What we have is a verification
Letter.
Verification was a letter, a document by Dr. Osborne saying that he says that he did not, he's going back on he's going back and saying this is not a suicide. That's all he said.
It should be anything other than a suicide.
That's what he said. Now, a part of our negotiation with the city, I believe, is that they are going to relook at the case, have the medical examiner relook at the case files and see what they come up with again. I don't know why we're doing that, and I don't trust the city. I don't trust the city at all.
And it's now.
The city could tell me today is Tuesday. They could tell me it's daylight. I still wouldn't believe them.
Well, I can understand why you feel that way, and I want all three of you to respond to the chilling 911 call made by Ellen's fiance. We're going to have to take a break. When we come back, we're going to hear that. And Nancy, I'm going to ask you to walk us through it, and then we're going to get the parents' reaction. We're going to do that right after the break. Let's cut to the chase. Your savings could be in serious trouble. When Elon Musk is out here warning us to brace for temporary hardship, you might want to listen. I trust Preserve Gold to safeguard my accounts, and I urge you to do the same. They're the only precious metals company I recommend. Are you going to sit back and hope for the best or take control of your financial future? Text Dr. Phil to 50505 to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. With gold prices recently breaking records and analysts predicting this trend to continue through 2025, you cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 with a qualified purchase from Preserve Gold. So don't wait. Text Dr. Phil to 50505. That's DRPHIL to 50505 today. We're back with Nancy Grace and the parents of Ellen Greenberg, and I want to play the 911 call made by Ellen's fiance, Sam Goldberg. And I want to be clear, Sam Goldberg has not been named as a person of interest or as a suspect in this case. He did make a 911 call, and I want to get all three of y'all's reaction. Let's listen to the call.
feet. Now, I just walked to my apartment. My fiance's on the floor with blood everywhere.
What is the address?
Please come, help, now. I think her head. I think she hit her head, I think. But it's got blood everywhere.
She might have fallen. Do you know what happened?
She may have slipped. There's blood on the table. Her face is a little purple. I went downstairs to go work out. I came back up. The door was latched. My fiance's inside. She wasn't answering, so after about a half hour, I decided to break it down. I see her now just on the floor with blood. Like she's not responding.
Okay, is she breathing? Look at her chest. Is she flat on her back?
She's on her back, so I bring her.
Look at her chest and tell me if it's going up and down, up and down.
I don't see her moving.
Okay, do you know how to do CPR?
I don't.
Okay, I can tell you what to do, okay, until they get there. I want you to keep her flat
Oh,
on her
God.
Hello?
Yeah, hi, okay.
Are you willing to do CPR with me over the phone until they get there?
I have to, right?
Okay, so get her flat on her back, bare her chest, okay? You want to rip her shirt off?
Her shirt won't come off. It's a zipper.
Rip
Oh,
it
my
off.
God. She stabbed herself.
Where?
She fell with a knife. Oh, no. Her knife's sticking out.
Her what?
There's a knife sticking out of her heart.
Oh, she stabbed herself?
I guess so. I don't know where she fell on it. I don't know.
Okay, well, don't touch it.
Okay, so I just let her down here now. I mean, what do I do?
No, I mean, you can't. If the knife is in her chest, it's going to be kind of hard for you to do CPR at this time.
Okay, now, I'm sorry, guys, but I have this figure here with a knife protruding from it that is similar to the knife that was there. Nancy, how do you not mention this in the beginning of a 911 call?
Dr. Phil, I have so many problems with everything that I'm hearing. I hardly know where to start. But I would like to point out in what you just played, which is a portion of the 911 call by the fiance to 911, that is where we first hear the word stab herself. This is where the specter of suicide first emerges. She stabbed herself. I mean, if I came upon my husband, I wouldn't think he stabbed himself. But for a reason, the fiance says she stabbed herself. I don't know that reason. Why not somebody stabbed her? But then she fell on a knife 20 times. Okay, I understand that people are in shock when they come upon the body of a loved one. I get that. But I would like to point out, and this is so important, it's critical. I know that Josh and Sandy know what I'm talking about because we've discussed it many times. It's the wrong way blood. The wrong way blood. What do I mean? When authorities got there, Ellen was sitting as the fiance described. She was lying on the floor, but from about the chest up, the bra line up, she was leaning back vertically against the kitchen cabinets. So she was basically propped up, sitting against the kitchen cabinets. But Dr. Phil, across her face is wrong way blood. Blood going horizontally, which means she was moved. The blood had dried that way. What does that mean? Staging of the scene.
Well, gravity is gravity. We know that, and we know blood runs with gravity. Sandy, Joshua, give me your reaction to the demeanor of the man making that phone call. Is that the man you knew? How did you expect him to react in a crisis?
I was so crushed when I heard the operator say, "Are you willing to do CPR with me?" And her fiance says, "I guess I have to."
Right. I think also I was trying to go back before we played the tape. Sam spent a good 45 minutes outside the apartment making phone calls, numerous phone calls, and we've traced them to his uncle, his cousin, and other people, those people basically. Then he allegedly, and I'm going to say allegedly, broke in, because we can discuss the damage to the swing lock that was minimal, that was not damaged enough for anyone to get into the apartment. As for anything else he said, it's not believable. I'm not an expert on this, but the experts who have listened to these tapes say it's staged. It's wrong. It's not how you normally react. And the knife that was in her chest, the handle was a good 5-6 inches protruding from her chest. You couldn't miss it if you looked at her body. And he didn't see it until he started to try and remove her chest clothing to do CPR.
But remember, the operator said, "Is she lying on her back?" And he said, "Yes."
Yes.
And now the crime scene photos show her propped up against the kitchen cabinets with wrong way blood.
And again, if the blood should flow according to gravity. So it would have to go from the edge of the nose to the earlobe, not from the edge of the nose to the earlobe in a horizontal fashion. It has to go in a vertical fashion. So not only did it go that way, it coagulated that way.
Yeah, it dried there.
The whole thing is BS.
Dr. Phil, I believe at this juncture, since no one has been named a suspect or even a POI, person of interest, we just have to get this case opened. We'll worry about the whodunit later. This case has got to be reopened.
Absolutely, 100%. And we're going to talk about that. And in fact, we're going to talk to the district attorney who was assigned to investigate Ellen's case in 2015. What he says about the lock on her apartment door will shock you. Plus, we'll show you surveillance videos from inside the apartment moments before Ellen's body was discovered. All of that coming up right away. We're now adding Guy DeAndrea to the conversation. He's a former Philadelphia prosecutor who was assigned to investigate this case in 2015. Now, Guy, thank you for being here. You say there were signs of injustice, mishandling from the beginning. And I'm just going to ask you a broad question. What were those things? What bothers you about the handling of this case?
Right from the beginning, and not the beginning of Ellen's death, because I wasn't involved until 2015. And when I first started looking into this, I wanted to know up front, I didn't even know the story, but I thought, how could you have 20 stab wounds all over the body? How could this be a suicide? So I called the medical examiner's office, and the singular reason they provided to me was the apartment door was an old-fashioned deadbolting system, meaning it's deadbolted into the frame. And because that's the way it was when Sam came upon the apartment, it meant that no one could have entered or exited, meaning it was, in fact, as bizarre as it may be, a suicide. And so when I heard that, Dr. Phil, I thought, well, then this will be as bizarre as it is, like I said, this will be a very quick reinvestigation by me. But then when I view the photographs and I see that it's not in any stretch of the imagination a deadbolt system, but rather a hotel latching mechanism, within 30 seconds, you can go online, search how to lock or unlock that type of mechanism from outside the apartment. So right away, it just threw me that people with these actual photographs were trying to sell me on a bill of goods that's laughable in a 30-second search. A junior detective could have done that.
And this is easy to open, is what you're saying.
Incredibly easy. You could do it by using a hammer, a device, opening the door too quickly and then slamming it shut. There's so many different ways to do what someone could do inside the apartment and then stage it as being latched from the outside while you're outside.
Okay, and Nancy, you and I have read a lot of police reports and stuff. This was a misreporting. What do you make of that, Nancy?
This is what I make of it. At the time, the fiance, who was not a suspect, stated there was a witness that he brought with him when he broke in the door. Where had he been? He came back to the apartment, apparently, but then left to go just downstairs, Dr. Phil, for about a 45-minute workout. As I recall, Guy DeAndrea, that's correct. And he is caught on surveillance video going in and out of the workout club downstairs in the building. He didn't get in the car and drive through the snow and then come back an hour later. In the building. So in the space of the time that he was in the apartment, went to work out 45 minutes and came back, Ellen had been attacked and murdered brutally. Now, to the witness, The fiance says a witness came and observed him breaking in the door. This is what I found when I was researching the book. There was a night manager working downstairs, at the front desk.
Right.
Nice luxury condos, they have a doorman, all right? He's there. According to him, the fiance asked, hey, I can't get my fiance to come, can't get Ellen to come to the door. Come with me, I'm going to break the door down. Words to that effect. And the night manager says, I can't leave here. I'm not going anywhere to break down any door. I'm not going. So there was no witness to the breaking down of the door. I'm with DeAndrea on that door lock. It was not a deadbolt. And part of the lock was still on the door after it was broken down, which means the evidence was destroyed. When you break a door down and break through the lock, as purported, you destroy the evidence. See what I mean? There was no witness.
I want to keep going here. What else did you see that really bothered you about this? The door lock bothered you. What else, Guy, bothered you about this?
It bothered me when I started reviewing all of the different photographs, the scene, and identifying up front that this wasn't done right. Meaning, when you come upon a scene as law enforcement and you see someone with 20 wounds, you don't know at that point, let's say you don't know factually, what exactly happened. But when you have 20 wounds versus, let's say, someone had slit their wrist, 20 stab wounds has to be treated, at least preliminarily, as a homicide. Why is that important? Because right away, that would have required the crime scene investigative unit to come on scene, which would have meant blood testing, things such as luminol and other testing could have been done to see whether or not the presence of cleaning fluids was introduced on the scene, meaning someone killed her and then cleaned it up. That didn't happen. And it didn't happen because police officers immediately ruled this or determined this to be a suicide with almost zero investigation. So by that determination, we'll call it, crime scene was not called to the scene, which then led to a whole series of mistakes and problems that snowballed what were preliminary mistakes into a travesty of justice that has occurred in this circumstance. And then when you get to my repeated calls with the medical examiner's office giving pushback on, hang on a second, you keep telling me it's this, then it's that, and I do some basic investigation 4 years later, and I debunk what you're saying to me. It just troubled me beyond belief every time someone was giving pushback that years later, me coming in with new eyes, it could be debunked, whatever they were saying, within minutes, if not hours.
Okay, so they didn't treat this as a crime scene. They didn't come in and look to see if it had been professionally cleaned or staged or anything of the sort. And when you asked the medical examiner for information about the stab wounds and all, were they forthcoming with you about all of this?
Not at all, not all the time. It took pushing. And what I mean by that, Dr. Phil, one of the things that sort of rocked me to my core is when I read in Dr. Osborne's the autopsy report, the Dr. Rourke from the University of Pennsylvania, who was used as a neuropathologist because there wasn't one on staff, so it was a per diem, if you will, or an ad hoc. And there was an indication that she did a neuropathological examination of the spinal column. So when I saw that, I said, okay, let me see that report, because she would have produced her own report, right? And then it was, well, we don't have that report. Okay, well, show me the logs that shows she was there to perform it. We don't have those either. Okay, show me the billing statements that show you paid this doctor as you should have for her work. We don't have that. So then I call, Dr. Rourke years and years and years and years ago, and there was no recollection of doing this. And I don't mean like I don't remember one way or another. It was a very clear, I didn't do this. And when I would push, how do you have an examination was done in your report when it's clear by every piece of evidence or lack thereof that it wasn't in fact done? And never got a good answer on that. And it bothers me so tremendously to this day that things were just flat out put into a medical examiner's report that are not true, patently false.
So it was logged, but it wasn't invoiced. There was nothing to substantiate that this was actually done.
That's exactly right.
Well, I want to talk more about this. And coming up, Ellen's fiance recently broke his silence 13 years after Ellen's death. We're going to tell you what he had to say when we get back. And I want to say again, and I'm saying this because he is not here to defend himself, that I'm not suggesting that he is the culprit here. He's not been named as a person of interest. He is not a suspect. He's never been charged, indicted, or anything of the sort. And you'll have to make up your own mind. We're just talking about the evidence here. Nancy said it well. It looks like somebody here has done something terrible, causing the death of this young woman. We can't even get the authorities to agree on that, but it looks awfully suspicious. We just want to know if somebody did something, who it was. We're not suggesting that it was the fiance, and he's not here to defend himself, so I'll say again, we're not suggesting that it's him. The evidence is what it is. You have to make up your own mind. We'll be right back. Tonight we're discussing the mysterious case of Ellen Greenberg. Now, Ellen's fiance, Sam Goldberg, recently spoke, telling CNN in an email statement, and I quote, "When Ellen took her own life, it left me bewildered. She was a wonderful and kind person who had everything to live for. When she died, a part of me died with her. Unimaginably, in the years that have passed, I have had to endure the unimaginable passing of my future wife and the pathetic and despicable attempts to desecrate my reputation and her privacy by creating a narrative that embraces lies, distortions, and falsehoods in order to avoid the truth. Mental illness is very real and has many victims. I hope and pray that you never lose someone you love like I did to a terrible disease and then be accused by ignorant and misinformed people of causing her death. If you're really writing a truthful story, dig deeper, and please do some good by raising awareness for mental health." End of quote. We reached out to Sam through his attorney and did not hear back. Joshua, Sandy, any response to that statement?
I have no comment.
I do. It's the most disgusting thing I've ever heard. There's not an ounce of truth in it. We have for 14, or whatever the time is, 14 years here, never pointed a finger at who we thought did this or any way, shape, or form. So I have no idea what he's talking about. We have done this by the book. No jumping on tables, no acting out like a moron or an idiot, no excited father or mother. We have done this professionally. And we never have ever, ever, ever said who we thought might have been the person that actually murdered Ellen. But we do believe she was a victim of a homicide, a murder, a savage and brutal murder.
So you have no doubt in your mind that she is the victim of foul play, that she was murdered here, and lots of signs point to that. You're not saying that it was him. You're not suggesting it was him. You're just saying someone took your daughter's life. You believe that to the core of your soul.
I believe there was a murderer and a female abuser loose in Philadelphia or someplace comparable that was involved in this particular incident. That's what I believe.
And Nancy, you believe that a crime has been committed here.
I have no doubt in my mind, Ellen was murdered. Ellen did not stab herself 20 times at one of the most happy times in her life. And again, I would like to point out, this is not about Sam Goldberg. It's not about him. I'm not making it about him. This is about Ellen. I have a daughter. I have a son. I, like Josh and Sandy, would want justice. Who did this? We're not even at that point. I don't know who did it, but I know she was murdered. We have to get to the fact finding, the independent fact finding as to what happened to Ellen before we can even guess who may have done it. So this isn't about him. That's why he hasn't been named a suspect or a POI, because he's not. This has to be reopened. Another thing, Dr. Phil, I just want to point out that at the beginning, Dr. Marlon Osborne stated, I have enough evidence to rule this is a homicide. Then there was a closed door meeting between him, police, and somebody from the DA's office that has gotten immunity over what happened in that meeting. Why? Why does the prosecutor, who's supposed to be wearing the white hat, need immunity over this meeting? Then after that meeting, bam! Oh yeah, it's a suicide. You know another thing about Lucy Rourke, Dr. Lucy Rourke, the neuropathologist? She doesn't even remember any examination of the sheath around the spine. She doesn't remember any of that happening. And according to Osborne, he took the sample, in a pickle jar, and walked through the snow to Rourke, who met him outside and looked at it. No white jackets, no microscope, nothing. That didn't happen. So why is it in that autopsy report? It didn't happen. I'll tell you what I think, Dr. Phil. I think it was a sloppy scene recovery. They decided, oh, no forced entry, suicide. And then everything snowballed from there to cover for the sloppy job at the scene. And here we are today. And Shapiro, you too. You were in the AG's office. You wouldn't open this case. Now you're the governor. Here's your chance to finally do the right thing, Shapiro.
We're out of time for tonight, but we've only seen the tip of the iceberg in the mishandling of this case. We've only been talking for an hour, but Joshua and Sandy have been living this for 14 years. If you want to help, please join the over 166,000 people who have signed the petition for justice for Ellen Ray Greenberg on change.org. Also, support the Greenbergs and follow their journey at the Justice for Ellen Facebook page. We have so much more to cover about this beautiful young woman. Come back tomorrow night to hear the rest of the story.